it was time for another video in the Turning on the Chief series. But this is a bit more of a complex project. And the reason I'm saying Turning on the Chief series is because most of the wood going in this project I was given. An old baby bed that I tore apart. I'm using parts of it. Some aromatic cedar that I was given. I don't even remember when. Some scraps of walnut. Parts of another baby bed that I tore apart. Some red oak scrap that I had. Some SIPO that I was given. So I don't know where a lot of this came from. I don't know what some of it is for real. But it's stuff that was given to me or that I found. And I glued it together into a blank. I made sure that all the pieces were even, and each species is the same coming from here inside. Red cedar, followed by two thin pieces of SIPO, otherwise known as African mahogany. 2 pieces of walnut, even though this one is more sapwood. 2 pieces of oak. 2 pieces of SIPO again. These 2 pieces came from an old baby bed. I don't know what they are. 2 more pieces of walnut. 2 more pieces from an old baby bed. 2 more pieces of walnut. And 2 more pieces from yet a different baby bed. So, yes, turning on the cheek. What are we going to do with it? You've seen me make bowls from a board. This is going to be the similar process. The difference being we're not going to line these up perfectly. We're going to twist them as we glue the rings together and hopefully create a dizzy bowl. So that's the plan. First thing we got to do is get this to the workbench, or in this case, the top of the table saw. And I'm going to glue a block on here, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And as you probably noticed, I already cut it round. I used my dividers, drew a circle. I've got my center point. I made this little jig. This serves 2 purposes. This bolt that I've sharpened to a point drops in here to my center point. So it centers this on here for when I glue it up. But something else I did to this was I tapped it. I drilled this side bigger and I tapped it so that it screws onto my live center that came with my Pneumatic. So this will be stuck in the tailstock. The other side will be pushed up against a big chuck, and then I will cut the ring this way. It's different than I've been doing it. I think this way is going to be more efficient, and I won't be tearing up my piece of plywood with laminate on it that I've got marked at increments. I'm going to glue this up a little bit different. I'm going to take this brown paper, and it's not real thick, so I'm going to, this is basically really thin paper bag material, and I'm going to glue this 2 layers of paper bag. Billy, why are you doing that? Well, I'm doing it, it's very much like when you do an inside-out ornament, or when I do an inside-out ornament, I always use brown paper in between my temporary joints, because using brown paper will allow me to separate the piece easier. Now that's overkill, I understand that. I'll put that on there. I've got my center hole. Now I'll hit my center hole. Okay, that's where it's supposed to be. Now I will sit this on here, making sure I'm still still in my center hole. Put that there. Take that out because I don't want to glue it in. Now I will let this sit here for about a half hour to tighten up, and it'll be stuck good enough so that I can take it over to the lathe and screw it onto my live center, and then I will push it up against my chuck, and I'll leave it set for another hour or so before I start cutting the rings off. So I'll come back in. I think it moved on me a little bit when I put the weight on it because it's not exactly centered anymore. But no matter. The glue isn't even close to drying, but I've got this clamped up, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I can go ahead and start working on my rings if I want to. It would be better if this was dry when I'm pulling it back and forth to remove them. But what I'm going to do right now, I'm not going to cut a ring at this point. I'm just going to true this up so that it's nice and round, or at least close. It's close. That's close enough. I'll let that cure up overnight, and then I will come back in the morning and we'll start cutting rings and gluing them together. Okay, let's cut some rings. What do you say? I say there's got to be a better way to do this. There is. Back this off. And we go over the bench and we mark our next ring. And of course, I forgot to hit record again. All right, I just parted another one off. It's quite a bit thinner than I really wanted, but we'll see where it goes. And I'm an idiot. I just cut another ring off. This time I used, the first time I was 65 degrees, this time I was at 55. Okay, now I'm going to do another one at 55. And I'll go make one more mark. I'll do the last one, I think the last one, at 45. So we'll do this one at 45. Last one. Okay, what I'm doing right now is I'm going to cut me a dovetail on here so that I can chuck it up. So I just want to put a dimple in the bottom of this so I know where my center is. It's right there. Now I can separate these and start gluing this up. One of the reasons I do this, you just noticed that it held really well while I was doing everything. All you have to do is drive a chisel in between these two pieces of paper, give it a pretty nice wrap, and then it just peels off. Now the fun part. That line is just this side of there. I cut that first ring a little thin, and I'll let this set up for about 5 minutes. That should be enough, and then I'll glue another ring on. Got glue on another ring. Five more minutes, we'll do it again. Okay, 5 more minutes, we do it again. Okay. Okay, 5 minutes, I'll do another. And time for another. Five more minutes, we'll do another. Okay, last one. Okay, and we'll leave it chucked up in here overnight. Let it dry good. And then tomorrow afternoon, we'll see if we can't turn this bad boy. This end grain is going to be fun. Not up here is really thin. This is going to be 1/8 of an inch thick or less, so I'm going to have to be real careful when I'm doing this so that I don't make the inside bigger than the outside. And when I turn it, I think I'll turn the outside first, then I'll have something to follow on the inside. Anyway, we'll see what it looks like. Okay, I've got this spinning about 600 RPM, which is as fast as I dare go with cold jaws. Smooth out the junction with where all these ridges are a little bit while it's still between centers this way. Because when you're turning it like this, as long as you've got compression on each end, the piece doesn't know it's hollow. So I'm going to use my homemade and I'm using this hoping I don't get tear out too bad. Let's find out. Well, it's tearing out some, but actually it's really not. Where it's cutting, it's actually cutting pretty well. The key here is light cuts. See what we got. That's just roughly done. It's going to need some more for sure, but that's not horrible. Not horrible. Now I can back this off. I'm going to glue a face plate to the bottom so I can turn it around and work more on the outside and then the inside. And when I get that done, I'll come back. Okay, I'm going to do the brown paper thing again because it works so well. So I'm going to spread this glue out on this paper. I've already got 2 pieces glued together and the glue's still nice and wet. Again, this is a trick that I learned doing inside out turnings, and it makes it real easy to separate when it's done, but it holds very well. And since I'm going to be using this faceplate, I want this to hold very well. And we got long grain to long grain, so that's going to be good too. Get as many of the bumps and wrinkles out of it as I can. You see, that's relatively straight. I know that looks convoluted, but it works, and that's all I care about. Now, I will leave this set and dry until tomorrow, and I will turn this around, thread it on, and we'll work on the outside and get it nice. And I'll also start working on the inside. I've got to get it nice too. It's still pretty thin right there, but I think I've got enough meat. I think we'll be all right. I'm going to finish some shaping on the outside of this now that I've got it turned around. sanding to do yet. Give this a good coat of shellac. Alright, I'll come back in a minute. Man, that's thin. And the only reason I took it to 320 is because now I have to put my bowl steady on here so I can work on the inside. I just hope it's not too thin. I think it'll be alright. Ooh, that's thin. Fresh shade film with scraper. That's an 1/8 of an inch or less right there. I don't dare do any more except down here. Now it's time to sand. Okay, I'll come back when I get this all sanded up. I'm going to take the inside now to 600. Okay, I've got this sanded to 600 and I'm applying my first coat of lacquer. I'm not spraying this, I'm applying semi-gloss straight out of the can. Oh yeah, it's really soaking it in. So I'll let this dry an hour or so and I'll come back and put another coat. I've got a couple of coats of lacquer on it now. I'm going to let this dry overnight, sand it back with 400, and I will spray the final coat. And then we can part this off and turn it around and finish the bottom. Okay, I've knocked this back with 400 and 600, and it's time for me to spray the final coat. It may take two, we'll see. I'll shoot as many coats on as it takes. It's probably going to take one more, and then we will come back when I'm ready to buff it out with Axe Abrasive Paste. Okay, time for the Axe Abrasive Paste. Enter the code below to get 10% off your order. This is good stuff. It's better than rubbing the finish out with sandpaper because it leaves the gloss, and it also leaves a protective wax film over the finish. So it does two things. It buffs it out and helps protect it. And then when you add the polish and restoring paste, you get an added layer of protection. This is a really big bowl, in case y'all didn't know. We want to start at a relatively low speed and work this in and start breaking those abrasives down so they polish this lacquer up. Okay, now it's working inside. That's looking pretty good already. I would have swore I got all of that dimple out. You can't feel it, but you can see it. I don't understand. Now for the polish and restoring paste, it doesn't take a whole lot of this stuff. I've seen people just gob it on. It don't take that much. Now I'll let that harden up for an hour or so that it becomes touchable, and then we will turn it around and finish the bottom. That shouldn't take too long. I didn't show me taking this off with a paper glue block, but basically I just took this bench chisel and put it between the bowl and the faceplate and tapped it a few times, working it around, and then it just came loose and it's just pulled right off. So before I take this off, I'm going to true that up, and then we'll turn the bowl around and mount it and finish it up. I gotta tell you, this thing is light, man. Really thin and really light. We'll see if we can't turn the bottom of this without throwing it out of the chuck. I sure hope we can. So what that means is really light cut. This thing is scaring me to death, I don't mind telling you. Almost there. I'm gonna round this lip as soon as I get this flattish. I want to concave it some. It's pretty thin. I want to leave space for my logo that I'm going to glue in. Let me drill that logo down. I've just been talking to you and talking to you. I got this in my cold jaws. It's held really nice. I smoothed this up. I had some tear out here and a little bit here. Actually, it wasn't tear out. They were chips blown away. So I did the best I could. I got to sand the bottom up now. I've got the recess drilled for my logo coin. So let's sand her up. And I'll repeat this through 600 after I make sure all of this is smooth. So I'll come back. Okay, comes back clean. Sheen isn't a perfect match from bottom to top because I didn't spray lacquer on this, and I didn't spray lacquer on this because I didn't want overspray on the wax. It'd be impossible to get off. I won't be selling this one. I'm not terribly happy with it, so this won't go on my website. I'll keep this in the house. Pretty much as a lessons learned sort of thing. The reason I used the skew in there just now is to get rid of the wax out of there. Put a couple of drops of super glue. This is thick, so I'll just put a couple of drops around that. Hit that with some activator. Normally I would make this recess deeper. I was afraid because of how much I had to take out of this layer or ring to get the dimple out. It sounds pretty thin. So we're going to call this one done. And here it is. And yes, I'm not holding it way up at the camera making it look bigger than it is. This is 14 3/8 inches wide. Like I said, it's 14 3/8 inches wide. It's 4 inches tall and probably 3 3/4 inches deep because it's pretty thin. Out here it's really thin. I'm at an 1/8 inch or less. It kind kind of skirting me a little bit, to be honest. It's not perfect by any means. Like I said, I will not be selling this piece. Nothing this ugly leaves my shop. The only reason I'm not putting it in the burn pit is because it's too pretty. Why don't you like it, Billy? Well, I've got some staining in some of this lighter colored wood, and I don't, and I'm guessing it was because there was a little bit of tear out there that I didn't see, and it absorbed the grain from when I was sanding. It took that red from the cedar. Got some more of it over here. It's hard to see. Some of the cedar itself is off colored, and I'm not sure why. Finish on the bottom and the sides don't really match because I couldn't spray lacquer on it, but it's still protected with plenty of, it's got 2 coats of seal coat, shellac, and then the Axe abrasive and polish and restoring paste. Again, more of a proof of concept piece for me. I've not done a dizzy bowl before, and I think that has a really cool look to it. I mean, I just really do. In spite of all the uglies in it, and there are more than I care to point out, in spite of all the uglies in it, I think it came out pretty. Not pretty awesome, just pretty. What am I going to do different next time? I told you this was a lessons learned thing. Next time, I think I may cut the rings on my scroll saw instead of on the lathe, number 1. Number 2, I think my rings are too thick. They're 3/4 of an inch. For it to be a really cool looking dizzy bowl, I think they only need to be, about half of that, 3/8, ½ inch at the most. So I will use thinner stock. Those are a couple of the things. Something else, this center ring of cedar is too wide. All the rings should be 3/4 of an inch thick or less. This is just what I'm picking up from this. So your boards need to be thin and your rings need to be thin. If your boards are thin, you could probably get by with a 3/4 inch thick blank if the boards are thin enough, because that will give it more, twist, or more of a twist look, if you will. Okay, I've rambled on long enough. Got my coin in the bottom. Like I said, I'm not terribly happy with it, but I think my wife's gonna love it.